Hello, hello. I think we are live, but I would love it if somebody leaves a comment on the comment section so that I know everyone is hearing me, is seeing me. Yes. Okay, then. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Fabina's Perfect Beer Talks webinar. I'm your host, Inky, and I'll be your host once again today. Today's guest is somebody who I've been talking to since last year to join Perfect Beer Talks webinar, and we finally made it happen today. His name is Barden. He's a CEO and also the founder of UK and Europe Konvoy. So, without further ado, Christian, welcome to Perfect Beer Talks webinar. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. And you're right, we've taken a time to get here. My fault, not yours, but it's great that we are here now.
Yes, I'm very, very excited to talk to you for the past 30 minutes, 45 minutes, to learn more about who you are, the work that you do. And I think, by the way, you are the first British person that I'm hosting on Perfect Beer Talks webinar. So
I feel like the weight of the nation is on my shoulders now.
No, please. Last week was my first time interviewing somebody from Spain and from San Miguel, and today it's UK. So I guess this month is a month of Europe for Perfect Beer Talks webinar. But yeah, without further ado, let's go on with the first question. Can you please share with us a bit about your journey in the draft industry, in the beverage industry, and what inspired you to pursue this career?
Sure. Well, look, I studied business at university, and what I knew from that is I wanted to get on a graduate program with one of the sort of the big corporates, corporate FMCGs, as we know them now. And I was fortunate enough to land a role with what was then Whitbread, and that was part of a much bigger PLC back in the day. We had hospitality, from pubs and bars to coffee with Costa Coffee, etc. We had hotels with Marriott and Travelin, and I was very fortunate to be part of the beer company in the day. And then through my career and the roller coaster of the change, which I know we'll touch on a little bit later within the beer company, within the beer world, we went from Whitbread to Interbrew to InBev to and then on to AB InBev. All in quite quick succession, and through that time, I was lucky enough to sort of end up in the commercial leadership team after 13 years after joining. And my goodness, I learned so much about change and adapting to change, and and all the things that went with sort of transitioning and combining businesses as well. So that was one hell of a journey that then led me into sort of non-exec director positions, again around drinks and for the first time including kegs. Some time with businesses like Refresco, as they're known now, Royal Unibrew, before then starting the Kegstar business, and now starting the Konvoy business. So all of that is kind of nearly 3 decades. And if I sort of give a nod to some of my colleagues back at AB InBev, who are now both at Asahi, we once landed on this phrase that draft beer is the brand showcase. And that pretty much sums up the journey and the excitement and the ongoing passion and interest in trying to get this right.
Can you tell us a bit more about why you think draft beer is that important?
Because we consume with every sense, yeah, and so if the environment's right and the social surroundings are right and the drink is poured well and the service behind the bar and all of those wonderful things, then that's where the moments, the memories are made. And again, we're social beings, yeah. So we like to be around in safe environments. We like to be around in safe company, and of course, food and drink is core to that since our very being and the beginning of time. So, you can do some amazing things with other forms of packaging. But there's nothing quite like, in my belief, there's nothing quite like it that when a beer is poured in the right glass at the right temperature with the right smile behind the bar and the right group of friends in the right environment, that's why it's the brand showcase.
I can't agree with you more. But everyone will think I'm biased for both
Yeah,
of us.
exactly.
But I always say this is the reason why we're doing the job that we do, because we actually believe in the things that we say. So we actually believe that like draft beer is really like the way that you can socialize, the best way to enjoy beer, the best way to socialize is social beer is a social drink, and the best way to enjoy it is to draft beer. But yeah, so I really just wanted to ask, you mentioned your almost 3 decade experience in the beverage industry, and then Konvoy happened. How and why?
Well, we were really fortunate that when we started the last keg business in Kegstar, we got together with the now sort of founder CEO, who also founded the Kegstar business. So we got together with a guy called Adam Tripp-Smith, and we created really quite a unique team and a unique way of going to market. And I'd like to think that we helped a lot of craft brewers bring their draft beers to market in the UK, in Australia, in New Zealand, and subsequently into Europe and into the US as well. And look, we have this firmly held belief that you can pool beer kegs, share those beer kegs amongst multiple users to sort of remove the capital and the operational stress that's on a business, and turn those kegs faster and faster, so that I guess essentially you've got kind of less assets doing more hard work. And so it's like everything else we're trying to do in this world right now. And there was a great culture, vibe, way of working between us that just happened. But there was always this thing around taking technology on to the next stage. And so when we started the last business, it was about QR code scanning, matrix code scanning, and sort of creating this behavior-based pricing so that we knew where the kegs are, so that we could collect them faster, and then we can redistribute them to the next one. But whilst we were doing that in the last business, we also sort of started to explore the opportunity of technology. And Adam, again, at Konvoy, sort of really pushed that to the next fold with Internet of Things tracking. Because, of course, we as humans, we're not very good at doing these things as a routine, as a structure. So when you rely on humans, things can go wrong. And by relying on the Internet of Things, whilst that doesn't mitigate all problems, what it does do is take a huge amount of that sort of that human capital, that labor, that interaction out. And when you can start to see kegs all over the world on a map because they're talking to you rather than you trying to find out where they are, then that's really different. So what led us to this was trying to solve the problems. We didn't get to solve the problems the way we'd want to with advancing technology until we started Konvoy. And now here we are taking it on to the next level with essentially edge technology and a group of really good people still dedicated to the same cause.
Awesome. That's so great. So you mentioned the Internet of Things, you mentioned the power of data. It's like we're doing, like Pabino and Convoy are doing almost similar jobs, but of course in different aspects, right? You guys are focusing on keg, and we're focusing on the draft beer that is being poured from the smart tap, or from the smart tap, yeah. And we both of us as companies focus on the power of data, and we always emphasize the importance of basically learning from what you're doing, not just doing because you think that's how it's supposed to be done, right? So
Yeah.
just like you track your kegs, for example, we also track how much beer there is left on the keg. And I was in an expo, I mentioned it to you before we started the webinar, and the thing that I think not only impressed but also shocked hotel owners, bar owners, restaurant owners the most was, for example, the smart app. You can see how much beer you have left on your keg, which is something that, like you said, instead of thinking, oh, where is my cake now, for us it's like, how much beer do I have left on my cake? Instead of saying it's heavy, it's not heavy, let's change it, let's not change it, just just use that data, just use the Internet of Things, just use that information to basically make the best decisions for your business and for you to earn more money and to basically do a better work, and grow as much as you can. Now, I want to ask you, the CEO of Konvoy, you're focused on leveraging the Internet of Things, like you mentioned, for cake management and also sustainability. I know you guys are doing some work on sustainability as well. Could you share more about how Konvoy is revolutionizing the beverage industry and promoting sustainability at the same time?
Yeah, sure. That, like you, if you go from having to do things manually to starting to be able to do things automatically, then all of that freed up resource can go into learning how you can take that on a stage further. And whether that's sort of knowing when you can collect your kegs, or to your point, when you might need to deliver, more beer, which could happen at the same time, to sort of finding out that you've got a route to market that is typically doing 500 kilometers when it could be doing 50 kilometers. All of
Yes.
those kind of things, when you can start to see it, then you can start to do something about it. And you mentioned data. Data is the core of it, but then really what we all want is those insights that you can do something about. Because when you aggregate all of that data, I certainly, for one, don't want to go through reams and reams of data to work something out. I want some insights there that sort of clearly say, okay, well, I need to handle this route to market differently, or we need to handle this part of the country differently, or we need to handle this part of the world in a new way in order to make draft beer, the brand showcase, and give value to our customers. So I think, turning data into insights that can really be actioned is a really fundamental part of it. And then you kind of touch on the sustainability part. I think the important thing is, in the world at the moment, I think we're sort of, rightly so, we're talking about a lot about sustainability.
Yes.
Technology will only be an enabler to all of that thing, in the same way it always has been. Yeah. And so we have to be careful that, just by having, your products, our products, Slack, StreamYard, just because we have all of those things, it doesn't automatically you're more sustainable. You have to do things with that in order to get there. And so, at a real sort of core base for what we do, and there's some really good sort of life cycle analysis from, some of the biggest global producers like Bleffer and Thielman. And that'll tell you sort of the carbon footprint of a stainless steel keg. But if you use that keg for 30 years and you turn it 3 times a year and you never lose that keg, then great. You're getting good value from that keg, and you're using less and less resources because you're handling it so efficiently. But interestingly, if you just change those metrics slightly, so maybe you have to replace that keg twice in that 30-year time span, and you only use the keg 2.5 times a year rather than 3 times a year, the grams per of carbon per 500 ml drink more than doubles, just because you've handled the keg differently. And of course, I go back to, then you can see your mileage, then you can see the idle time, then you can see, your loss rates with so much more clarity to be able to do something about it.
Fantastic. And also, like, from what we know from the American Association of Breweries, is that there is 20% lost per keg that is used worldwide, which is like an immense amount of beer and water. And at the same time, I saw an article, like, on the news actually a few weeks ago, that a bottle of beer was found on the deepest point of the earth in Mariana Trench, which was, it was amazing, but not in a good way, to see something like that happen in the deepest side of the earth. Like, what is a beer bottle doing that? So with cake, that'll never happen. So there's so much work to be done on the sustainability part, and there's so much emphasis to be put on the importance of using kegs instead of beer bottles, and the importance of just going to the pub, just enjoying a perfect pint from the pub, instead of sitting on the couch and watching TV and just drinking like a pack of beers from your couch. Like, beer is a social drink, and you have to enjoy it with your friends, with your families, and the best way to enjoy it for yourself and also for the world is by just going to the pub, right? And just enjoying it from a keg.
Well, like you say, that's my belief too. But look, there is always a time there's always a moment, and you can't always service that with the same form of packaging. And
Yes.
I think the important thing is, like everything else, it's about balance. Yeah. So, there's a time when a can is right. There is a time when a bottle is right. There's a time when a glass of beer from a keg is the right thing to do. And if we get that bit right, then, we'll solve all of those problems around sort of quality and sustainability and customer experience, etc. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, and we'll only get there the more we can see these things. And of course, I would love it if everybody was back in the pub, in the bars, and having a lot of fun with those brands.
Me too, for sure. Now, talking about technology, where do you think the beverage industry? How do you think the beverage industry is going to look like in the next 10 years when it comes to basically integrating technology and AI into everything that we do? Let that be, the way that we serve draft beer, or inside the breweries, or in any single way possible. Because when you see it from different industries, so the car dealership, so the car industry, the automobile industry, the medicine industry, they all have integrated AI very, very quickly, and a lot into the work that they do, the daily work that they do. But when it comes to the beverage industry, it's not really the same, uh, at least for now. So in the next 10 years, how do you think that's going to look like, or how do you hope it's going to look like?
I think it's probably more hope with a little bit of insights on it. And look, we all think our sectors are different, yeah, but
Yes.
every single sector and industry has got its own challenges. And I think the interesting thing about beer is it is quite an emotional subject, and it's watching your webinar with Jennifer a few weeks ago. This has been around for millennia, and in some ways not much has changed, but then in other ways so much has changed. And so I think we've, in the short term, obviously it's a tough environment for the drinks industry, particularly beer, particularly hospitality. But if I think, when I first started my career, and I'm thinking only in the UK, there was only a few hundred breweries. And yet, sort of only, I think it was, well, and either way, in the UK, we now have sort of over 1,800 breweries. In Europe, we now have nearly 13,000 breweries. So we've seen this massive sort of proliferation of breweries, of brands. We've seen wonderful brewing techniques coming back from the past, and then of course we've got all of these wonderful brewing techniques that people are creating, all the way down to carbon neutral beers, etc. So there's so much innovation, but then there's also so much pressure. But the thing that always happens, like with COVID-19, is that when all of these pressures arrive, people find new ways of doing things. And when they find those new ways of doing things, then consumers are given more choice. Consumers are given more opportunity to interact with brands, and then the next wave is unlocked. So I think we're going to go through a period of consolidation. We'll then, and at that point, then people will start sort of searching for innovation and opportunities. And then as we come out of that, then I think we'll start to be in a very healthy environment again. Heineken have recently talked about it. AB InBev have recently talked about it. When I certainly sort of see some of the consolidation going on at the moment, it is about creating a much healthier environment in the long run. So I think we'll see those trends coming to give us more choice, more opportunity, and through exploration, we'll no doubt unlock new categories, like we've seen with seltzer, like we've seen with how well no and low alcohol is done now as well around the world, and that can only be a good place. So look, there's an element of hope in there, there's an element of experience in there, but what I do know is that every time that the pressure is on like this, that's where people start to deploy new technology, start to get into the data behind the trends, and if we can join up all of this amazing data that's around, then whoever does that first will be in a really, really strong position. But you've got to embrace it, and you've got to fall in love with your problems to get there in the first place.
for sure, it's not an easy thing to do. That's for sure. I think we both talk from experiencing it firsthand. It's not easy, but like you said, if you love it and if you really believe in it, there's nothing stopping you. Especially when you're doing such an amazing work, and something that is really innovative and is for the better, and it is to serve people better beer, and to also serve businesses, and to serve breweries better business for them as well. Now, I wanted to ask you, from your opinion, do you think that the draft industry is proactive or a bit more reactive? And
Uh,
how do you think the dynamic influences innovation and adaptation within this sector?
we'll wait and see how this goes down. Well, how this goes down with everybody, but I think it's predominantly reactive.
I
And
think so.
and the reason being is that at the heart of all of this, you know, producing beer is a craft. It's a skill. It's a passion, and it's also incredibly complex, which is actually linked to your thing around why I think it's the brand showcase. You know, when you think of all of the inputs and the points at which you can fail from the brewery to the bar and back again. I mean, it's multitudinal, and so with that complexity brings challenges. It's incredibly capital intensive. So once you've laid that money down, you want to make it work. So when something new comes along, then actually, do I embrace this, or do I keep doing what I've always done because it's kind of working? And yeah, to that point, it can all go wrong in those last 10 meters, 5
Right.
meters
Yes.
from, in so many ways. And so I think it kind of lends itself to be reactive. But then there is all of this proactivity going on, and not a day goes by where we're not hearing about, breweries investing even more capital to sort of solar, to water collection, to the AB InBev stuff recently with Spot the Dog, walking the lines and spotting where there's problems in order to be to intercept problems rather than having to deal with them afterwards. An AI IoT robot prowling the lines, etc., which is phenomenal to watch. If anybody's interested in that sort of thing, go and take I think it's Boston Dynamics and AB InBev. It's a good 5 minutes of YouTube. And so I think there is a lot of proactivity going along, and the more we share this stuff, the more people can get an idea, turn it and make it fit into what they want to do, and then we sort of leap forward. But it is tough, to go from reactive to proactive, and to still respect all of that history, but then take it on to creating the next, people will look back in 5,000 years and say, wow, they did it like that.
Yeah, so like that tradition, like breaking the tradition, not actually necessarily breaking it, but allowing tradition to merge with innovation a little bit more is, I think, what the beverage industry needs, because it's so stuck into the way it was done thousands of years ago. They're kind of forgetting on how it can be better, or they're just not taking into consideration. I think it's getting much better, to be honest. For sure, just like the examples you mentioned are like facts that it is getting better. However, it's always like in some countries, or some people are like, this is the way it's been done for thousands of years, and that's the way I'm going to do it. They kind of forget that they can do better. It's like, I can tell them, okay, then just go use the same phone that you used to use 50 years ago, and why are you using an iPhone today, right? I kind of want to ask that question to them, like, why? Or just go use the same big computers that the Apple first launched. Why are you using a MacBook Pro? But yeah, people just need to understand that innovation is not bad. It's just that there's like the beer is such a saint, such a sacred beverage. I think people always want to save it and savor it as much as they can in the way that it has been done for thousands and thousands of years. But technology and innovation, I don't think will change the way beer is enjoyed. It will just enhance it. If I'm wrong, just let me know. But that's at least what I believe. That's what I
I'll
believe.
I'll just go to the comments now and see how much debate you've managed to create from that. But I completely agree, because if you always do what you've always done, yeah, we know the rest of the phrase, and that's how it ends up. You have to. You got to embrace change. You got to fall in love with your problems. I likened it to, since beer was first delivered to the pyramids, the only thing that's changed is the wooden kegs are now steel kegs, and the horses are now horsepower. So what else are we going to do to really take this on so it can last the next 5,000 years? And we see a resurgence in draft beer. We see a resurgence in hospitality, and we see an ongoing or accelerated role of technology in making that consumer experience just the best they've ever had.
For sure, for sure. And as you know, draft beer consumption has decreased globally. And it's due to different reasons. Some people are going more towards non-alcoholic beverages. Some people are leaving draft beer because they don't really like the taste of it anymore. Maybe they find some faults or mistakes when it comes to hygiene, when the beer is a bit watery. Like here in Turkey, for example, that's what I hear a lot. It's watery. It's watery. And that's why they stop drinking draft beer. Or sometimes they say they don't like this. They don't like the taste of the metallic taste of it. And I just wanted to ask you, how important do you think clean beer lines are? And what do you think is the level of tolerance that is acceptable for dirty beer lines?
Clean beer lines is incredibly important, and whenever you're doing anything with food-based products, there is no level of acceptability of acceptable tolerance. It just needs to be done the right way every single time. But look, it doesn't happen. We understand that. And that's where often the failure can happen in people's experience. Look, I think back to sort of some of my trade marketing days, and we used to talk about people increasingly becoming sort of more well off, as well as less time. But I think globally now people have got less time and they've got less money, and so when a draft beer costs £7 in your local pub, and it's sort of the equivalent, of that same beer might cost you £1.5 to £2 from your local store. Then, in some ways, we create that environment for people to consume at home, but also that environment for people consuming at home is also a circumstance of the socio-demographics that we're facing around the world. So it's really tough. What I do know, though, is if it really does fit that total value for money experience, customer experience, then that's where people say, do you know what, I'm just going to go down to the pub or go down to the bar with my friends, and 1 or 2 pints later. And to your point, non-alcohol. I mean, non-alcohol served in draft now is something else, and low alcohol as well. I'm thinking now, I look so much forward to my sort of every quarter meetings with one of the directors at Thornbridge, for example, and it's straightforward. We get together, we have a bit of a state of the nation conversation, and we have a 0.5, which is just a fantastic low alcohol beer. Serve draft, absolutely great. So, we've just got to make sure that all these moments connect, and that, we're not trying to sort of take lumps out of each other. We're actually trying to make a much, much bigger draft beer category.
Perfect. Yeah, that's an amazing answer, actually. Now, I have a question that is coming not from me, but from Miss Jennifer Hawk. I asked her to just come up with the questions she would like to ask the next guests of Perfect Beer Talks. And she came up with the question: what is the number one thing that you feel could improve quality of draft beer?
You could say this is probably a really predictable answer.
Okay.
But it's that visibility of what the consumer sees. Yeah. You solve visibility and you'll save so much, because like I say, there's so much that can go wrong. And I'm sure everybody sort of watching or listening to this, understands this. But when you break it into component parts, you put all of those years of experience and love and passion and science into producing a beer. and then you package it. Well, you need to be really comfortable that that beer keg has been cleaned to the highest possible standard, or else you've already created a moment of quality failure.
Yeah.
And then you sort of move it to another part of the plant and into storage before it's distributed. And that time on the keg has an impact on the quality of the keg. And then you'll sort of move it out into the market. And of course, once it's outside of the brewery, then of course you're further away from the level of control. And look, again, I'm bound to say this, but it's really fundamental to join these things up, which is that if you could then see it even through to that point, you'd have so much more understanding either on the individual keg or package, let alone at an aggregated level. And then it might sit in a distributor, it might sit in the cellar of the pub, and all of that time adds up to the quality. And then that last few meters where you guys come into play, does it get connected the right way? Does it get connected with the right gas, the right temperature? Does it get connected and pushed through the right lines in the right way? Does it ultimately get poured the right way into the right glass? And then finally, does it get handed and positioned the right way? And that's the simple version. When you start to get into all of the sort of the Ishikawa or the fishbone of it, where everything else can happen, it's incredibly complex. So to just be able to see that and then join all of those sources of data up, then that would be so powerful. And look, there's a reason why lots of big beer brands choose their sort of their small pack and really focus so hard on that, because to a degree they can control the quality way better than you can, which is why the brands that do draft beer so well and really do try and reach those quality points all the way through the supply chain are the ones that succeed on the bar as well as on the sofa, I guess. So I think that visibility and you know what? Because we've got so much technology,
Yeah.
then we kind of think that that's all of the answer, and it's not.
No.
There's a thing about just wandering around. Yeah. So whether you're the most senior person in the brewery or whether you're the most junior, if you're in the pubs, if you're in the supermarkets, then you'll actually see and feel what the consumer tells you rather than what the data tells you. And that in itself is just so powerful.
For sure. Yeah. Actually, I asked this question to the previous guest of Perfect Beer Talks webinar, and he gave a very, very similar answer to you, which means the experts think alike, which it means consistency is key to success, right?
Fantastic. I'm pleased I got it at least similar to somebody else.
Come on. Now, I wanted to ask you a very, very fun question now. Nothing's serious. If you could share a pint with anyone in this world, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I've probably used this person in so many bits of my thinking and leadership and how to get stuff done, and it would probably be Henry Ford.
Oh,
How you sort of, well, again, if you ask people what you really want, what they really wanted, faster horses. Yeah. And is one of his phrases.
I love it. I think I love it.
And so if you can then take something that, I either use my legs or my horses to go somewhere, and you can standardize something to the point where everybody then moving from those things into using what we now know as a car or a motor vehicle, and all of the processes and the leadership and the mindset that went behind creating that change, then that would be a really fascinating beer to have. I hope it'd live up to my expectations, but it would be a fascinating beer to have. So, and I'd say I'd probably, if I thought of a location, I'd want to have it down in the Winter Gardens in Fort Myers, down in Southwest Florida, which is probably the right place. That was his winter home, and I think that would be a nice location, sitting by the sea and hearing the guy talk.
I kind of am jealous. I wish I want to have that as well. I was gonna ask you where would you like to have a pint, but you answered it perfectly. Now I want to ask you a question that most of the guests are like, I don't know, but I think you're gonna give a very nice answer. If you could change one thing about the beverage industry or the draft industry, let's focus on draft. Anything at all, what would you change?
I don't know. I don't know it's about the draft industry as such, but it's probably more of a beer thing. So, um, and I think, yeah, I think we've got to get back to a place where it's okay to like what you like, and it's okay to like the beer that you like. It's okay to like the serve that you like. It's okay to like the brewery that you like, and it's okay to like all of those things in a different way and a different time each time. And
Mhm.
I sometimes kind of think that, we have to see it almost like a football team, which is, I only drink this brand or I only drink from this brewery. And you know what? The more we open that up, the more people will find different different brands for different occasions, and hopefully all of those things will come together. Which is, do you know what? I had it in my favorite pub, in my favorite glass, from my and from my and from a social environment where I just could have a great time. So I think there's an element of making sure that we can kind of, it's okay to explore all of those different things. I think if I change one thing related to that, I think it would probably be Cam Media in the UK did some good work with Budvar. And I probably have this number wrong, but I think it's something like 40 or 45% of consumers sort of suggested that they'd had a bad draft experience in the last 12 months. So I think if you then sort of say, well, look, there's one thing I'd like everybody to do, but actually if I could change something, then it would make sure that nobody ever had a reason to complain about their beer. And if they did, the licensee or the person serving them had the ability to say, that beer has been poured absolutely to the very best of everybody's ability. And then we can just get on with enjoying it.
Then I guess everyone has to get the smart tap into their bars and restaurants.
Somehow I managed to make it around that. You'd probably say that was predictable, but well done.
Now I want to ask you, since you're talking about a perfect beer, what is a perfect pint for you? What makes a perfect pint for you? Like maybe what distinguishes a good pint from a great pint for Christian?
Look, I'll come all the way back to the senses again. I think, if the beer's sessionable, if the social setting's right, if the whole ceremony of the serve is there, like anything else, everything just needs to come together. And so I could tell you that I've had, an amazing, an amazing experience drinking a number of beers with a whole bunch of friends. I could also tell you I've had, just one amazing beer sat with my family, in the kind of perfect location as well. So I think it's with when all of those senses, tick, 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 that comes together, then I think you're in that zone. And of course, quality has to be right. You can have all of those other things right. You put that beer to your mouth and before you even taste it, you can smell there's something not quite right. It might not even be with the beer. It might be with the glass, or it might be with the person's hand that touched the glass. Who knows? But if you get those right, then you're in that sort of you're in that great serve or that great beer scenario.
Awesome. Now, Christian, with your years and years of experience, and I don't know, with just the things that you've learned from working in this industry for almost 3 decades, I want to ask you, what is one advice, the best advice you've ever received, or the best lesson you've ever learned, and would you like to share it with our audience today?
Sure. Best advice. Well, best thing I've learned through all of that is a great little saying called "be, do, have."
Okay.
And I'd probably say every time I've messed something up, it's because I focused on having something rather than just being the person that could have that stuff and doing the things that person would do. And then you look up and you go, wow, how did that happen? And so Be Do Have has just been so valuable. And look, you can put it into you can boil it down into sort of strategic actions, and you can boil it all the way down to, just having a great family and a great home life as well. So I think that's probably one of the most valuable tools that or ways of working that I've bumped into. And there's plenty of times, like I say, that I've got it wrong because I've got the model wrong. I think the other thing is, advice wise, somebody once turned to me and said, hey Christian, you're not very good at being patient, but this time give it a try. And it stayed with me. because I did, and it worked out okay. So, so there you go. There's 2 for the price of 1.
Be Do Have and be patient. To be honest, I'm not just saying this, but it might be one of the best advices I have listened to in all of Perfect Beer Talks webinars I've done this far. And with that was my last question. Thank you so much for being part of Perfect Beer Talks webinar. If you want to share anything with our audience, if there is any news on Konvoy, if there is anything you want to tell us, please go ahead and do so.
That's very kind. I think first up, if anybody wants to get in touch, whether it be from a leadership point of view or from a sort of strategic point of view, or just reaching out and building networks, we never ever achieve anything by ourselves. So I've probably got as much to learn by people reaching out as it might be the other way around. I think the bit of news that I'd offer is that there's some news out there now that we've just started a partnership in the UK working with Brewpoint, tracking their gigs through Europe. And I think that kind of hits your comment around, there's a really traditional, fantastic UK brewer that has embraced cutting edge technology to solve some of their problems. So I think that's a brand new piece of news. So thank you for inviting me to offer that and point people to take a look at that. And look, thank you for making this a cool space and a cool way of having a chat. And to the people that I know out there, then great to be able to have some time to talk in front of you. And like anything else, I welcome feedback. It is a gift. And so thank you very much. Thank you very much, Enki.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we actually have Chemistry UK watching us. They commented on the comment section. We actually have Heineken here. So we have the head of innovation at Heineken from Switzerland. We have so many amazing people watching us. And they are all saying, well done, Christian, great interview. This is Alan Stevenson. We have somebody saying, agree 100%. Sadly, we are not quite there of all the time. I think this was about clean lines and pouring the perfect beer. We have so many people, amazing people who are just watching and rooting for us. So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Christian, once again for joining us. I hope we can do this again soon. Maybe we can do it next year again, and we can just update one another on the things that we're doing at Pabino and also at Konvoy. And I hope that technology, your technology and our technology is going to basically spread everywhere where draft beer is served and loved.
I hope so too. And most importantly, well done to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Everyone have a good night, good day wherever you are. I don't know what time it is where you are, but it's night here. So good night from me. And I will see you on the next one, next week, actually, with a very special guest. She's a journalist at Forbes, and she's also an amazing beer content creator. And I'm very excited to see what she has to say next week at Perfect Beer Talks webinar. Bye.
See you later. Thank you.